Welcome. This is Down to Earth Center for Science and Environment's Conversations. Conversations on the big issues of our times. And today we are discussing what is obviously today's issue, Budget 2017. I'm Sunita Narayan at CSE, and I have with me my colleagues Richard Mahapatra and Chandrabhushan. Richard, let me start with you, and I think all of us, let's sort of put down clear and as bluntly as we always do, what is your take from the budget 2017?
I think the biggest take is not from the budget, rather from the economic survey, which did a very unusual thing and told and analyzed the economy from 1984 till now. And what they found is that the districts of India which need or is getting the maximum fund have the least capacity to spend also, and that's why inequality has widened. The second takeaway is from budget. It's a good takeaway. I think it's the budget for the second consecutive year has retained the focus on rural areas. And the third takeaway is that, which is again might be a bit disappointing, is that this is the last functional budget, full-fledged budget for the government. Next budget just before the elections will be just a populist or anything else. So we expected, the government could actually enforce its vision that it started with many broader big visions like doubling farmers' income or taking away some close to 30 million people out of the poverty traps. So the takeaway is that again implementation side was not that.
We'll come back to implementation, Richard, but before I come to Chandrabhushan, I think there's also a comment being made, and I think it's an important comment, that at some level this government has shown some amount of discipline, given the fact that you have elections coming up, and it could have been a much more big bang, much more populist budget. I think they have held back on that. So in that sense is sort of, I think there's also this very fine line of saying, UP is coming up and make or break state. I could have definitely come up with a budget which would have, doubling of farmers' income, removing all debt of farmers. I think the government has been good enough to say we have stayed away from some of those measures. So that I think is something we should also, but see your big takeaway.
I think the biggest takeaway is that this budget environment is absent from this budget.
Why do you say that?
Well, the finance minister didn't utter environment in his entire speech.
Interesting.
If you look at the economic survey, considering the fact that we had the worst air pollution in generations in Delhi, pollution is on our face, a river is polluted. Economic survey doesn't give proper mention on all these issues. We are losing certain percentage of our GDP because of pollution. Health is getting impacted, health cost is increasing. And still the economic survey and budget does not reflect the emerging and worsening of environmental situation in the country.
So hold that thought, because I want to discuss this further. Okay, but let me give you my big takeaway, and I think from both of you I would just add that for me it's the irrelevance of a budget in today's India in some senses. Yes, we haven't, what is good is that the finance minister hasn't rolled back the social welfare schemes, the rural development schemes, the irrigation schemes, but I think the biggest issue for us really is in this country is implementation. Our capacity to spend is pathetic. If you look at the Ganga program, you just talked about environment, and we will come back to it. We know that there seems to be a linear relationship between the money we spend and the pollution that grows. So we really need to make sure that both we get, I'm asking is that should budgets really be much more clearer about also implementation, or the lack of implementation, or faulty implementation, because I think that's really where the crux of India's problem is.
And I want to add here is that other than youth education program, which I thought is a good idea, if you look at capacity building within government, or for that matter the strengthening of the institution, I'm not saying that it should get mentioned because you're talking about implementation. There has to be some sort of concerted effort on institutional building if you really want implementation to improve. And I don't think over the years the finance ministers have focused on this topic, including this budget.
Including this budget.
Yeah.
And Richard, how would you, before we discuss environment, you know, the finance minister had this throwaway line about panchayats not having capacity.
He did that. He said
But do you think that the is there a connection between all this sort of, there's a huge amount on Digital India and on e-transactions and public sector. Do you see that at all coming together to strengthen what is the key institution for delivery, which is the panchayat or the Gram Sabha?
See, one way if you look at it, the panchayats are definitely the implementing agencies. That's a constitutional duty. So they do it. But one good thing which is happening is that there are efforts to make the system work and to deliver. As the economic survey pointed out, we need to deliver. But digital actually experiments in bits and pieces, but not in a comprehensive manner in the delivery chain itself, starting from the Krishi Bhavan to the Panchayat Bhavan. That I think we need to do. Efforts are being made, but we need more comprehensive.
So do you see this? I mean, let's, to me, that's really what the government is saying. Listen, we believe delivery is important, and their vision of delivery is
giving money.
Not just giving money in a targeted manner.
That is fine,
and
but
to identify the targets,
exactly.
they are basically doing Aadhaar linked as well as they are doing links through Digital India.
Can I
just want to add something here?
Richard, I'll come to you in a minute.
The idea of government is that if the subsidy program is not reaching people, which is true,
yes,
and therefore instead of running these programs, whether which is education or maternity health or LPG, if we give money to people, then maybe everything will get resolved. Okay, so the entire focus in digital program is to coalesce all welfare services. Okay, today it is about only the government run program. Maybe tomorrow it will become a voucher program.
Let's not. I don't think that's really what's happening. I think we're jumping too fast. Richard, first you, and then
I think
want to
the
comment on
biggest
this.
lacuna in all these things that yes, efforts are being taken to deliver well the development programs, but we need to know our target well.
Yeah.
It's already 14 years we don't know who is a poor in the country because we don't have a survey. Then how come and through which phone or which digital platforms you can reach your development to that poor if you have not identified the poor itself.
Yeah.
Suppose for example the way you are handling MG and REG now, you are giving an identity to each tank and pond being created by geotagging it,
which is good
idea.
Which is very good.
Very good.
And the emphasis on productive
Exactly.
assets is also
Absolutely.
very good. Okay. But Richard, and I just want to, the government also has this very interesting line, I thought the finance minister had, which was to do this with, to get the panchayats to basically get a composite index for a poverty-free Gram Panchayat. But what you're saying is that you don't even have a baseline survey to identify who is poor. Then how do you build a composite index for a poverty-free Gram Panchayat? But clearly, and I think there is, to me, this is clearly an area of greater examination. I think we shouldn't jump the gun right now. In my view, this is where a lot more work of down to earth and CSE needs to come in, where we do ground level reportage and analysis so that we can actually explain whether a scheme is working or not.
Or how do we define poverty? As we are talking about a composite index here.
Either how do we define poverty, but I think the larger issue of we are saying the government's view is instead of strengthening institutions, which seems to be difficult, let me do it through a digital route which improves transparency. Let me target and deliver.
No problem with that.
That's really what they're moving towards. I think it is important for us as analysts, as researchers, to look at this experiment seriously and well to see whether the LPG program of the government is working or not from this point of view, whether the maternal benefits program is working or not, so that we can actually see whether this linking of targeted groups and improving delivery is happening or not. And I think that has to be our work so that we can have a more informed budget. I'm still left with two issues that I want quick discussions on. Let me start, CB, with you quickly, because I think we have just 2 minutes left now, but very quickly on the point on environment.
I think, environment is on our face today, considering we all live in Delhi, we see the air pollution, we see Yamuna, and Delhi is not unique because we see the same situation across different parts of the country. Pollution levels are rising, the capacity of our institutions are going down, and in every area of pollution. And on top of that, now we have the specter of climate change. Thankfully, this time the monsoon was good, we have good rabi crop. But
interestingly, the government itself admits that even with a broken Fasal Bima Yojana, they've had to pay a huge amount of payout, which clearly shows that farmers are needing support.
Pockets of areas have had extreme rainfall and weather event, and therefore agriculture has suffered, and it is going to increase in the future. So considering climate change and local pollution issue, it was absolutely surprising that Economic Survey has not addressed these issues from economic point of view, because these are costs that a country and its people are going to pay, and Finance Minister has nothing to offer, for example, to reduce air pollution in our cities. Just one agenda, which is everyone is talking about.
So, if we wind this up, would I be fair in saying that at least from our perspective, the word environment is conspicuously missing in the budget or the economic survey?
Yes.
An issue which is so big in our face today, we cannot even breathe. But the word environment itself has been erased. It is almost like Donald Trump trying to erase the word climate change. I'm not going to go so far in saying imputing motives, but clearly it shows a deficit in ideas to think about it. And the other thing that is clearly coming out is that implementation is the key. Wherever the words are mentioned, the issue is implementation. Ganga is not getting cleaned, and we saw from the budget estimates that the revised estimate of the budget is actually lower than what was the budgetary allocation last year.
They're not able to spend money to even clean.
Exactly, CB. And I think that is, Ganga reflects, the Clean Ganga program of the government reflects the real crisis in governance today. So I think good discussion. Thank you.